So on the left-hand side here, I just searched Talcott Parsons in the American Books corpus of Google Books, just a footnote here. This is methodologically not perfectly sound because the extent of this corpus is not perfectly known, but it gives a first impression, which I also confirmed when searching the JSTOR corpus of sociology journals, of Parsons having sort of a career described by rise and decline, who becomes less and less cited. It's interesting to see that this does not necessarily hold for the German system theorist who builds on Parsons, Niklas Luhmann, who at least here does not show a very strong decline in the American books corpus and even seems to be thriving in the German books corpus still. So I think functionalism is not only interesting, as I said, for functionalist statements explicitly and implicitly still being with us in sociology as in everyday life, but functionalist theorists of the kind of Niklas Luhmann, for instance, are also still amongst us as sociologists. So it is, I think, still an important theory to keep in mind. But despite this a little bit historical interest, let's take a brief look at the sociology of Talcott Parsons. And in the reading for today, you encountered what is the central problem of Parsons, the early Parsons, when he develops the action theory. And this is the problem of what he dubs double contingency, or in his own terms here, quote, not only as far as for isolated behaving units, animal or human, is the goal outcome contingent on successful cognition and manipulation of environmental objects by the actors, but since the most important objects involved in interaction act too, it is also contingent on their action or intervention in the course of events, unquote. Just a little footnote here, you may notice from Parsons' syntax that he has been a little bit influenced by him studying in Germany, and not as a coincidence, Parsons is also known as one of the main translators and hence popularizers of Max Weber's writings in the English language. So many of the older editions of Max Weber's writing in English are actually translated by Parsons. And yes, you could say that it was not necessarily to his benefit that, he translated all of this, because his English syntax became a little bit Germanic here in nature. But yes, end of a footnote. So the problem of double contingency, as you have probably read, has a certain history already, which Parsons briefly narrates. And he starts himself with Thomas Hobbes, who in his book Leviathan, 17th century, right, English Civil War situations, describes the first contractualist theories of how societies and how social order emerges. Yeah, so Thomas Hobbes thinks about social order as sort of the fight between human beings. Yeah, every human being has the capacity to sort of kill every other human being. There's a basic equality of strength, and to the state of nature is basically a state of war, out of which human beings can only emerge once they can agree on giving the monopoly to exercise violence to this Leviathan, to this basically social entity that you see here being composed of all of these small individuals, and who's then the sole sort of power to exercise violence against individuals who contractually agree to cede their power to exercise violence to this Leviathan, who maintains order. And it is this very sort of this social system that this is sort of contractually agreed upon and created, which helps human beings to get out of this state of nature where everyone fights everyone else, and in order to get started with society. So the problem of order, or let's say the problem of how to get out of the state of nature, or how to build trust, is a very old one already, and may also in modern terms be described through what is called the problem of collective action. We will see this a little bit more in our rational choice lecture. But the problem of collective action, then basically described in the prisoner's dilemmas terms, for instance, we will get to this, describes this very problem then of the lack of trust between individuals, the basic problem of security not being solved, and hence sort of making individual action in societies not really feasible. And I think it is important to distinguish three different readings of this problem of order, or of the different double contingencies involved in social interactions. And only one, I think, is this Hobbesian Thomas Hobbes problem of order, where basically social order cannot be created unless I trust basically you that you won't kill me in the next second, right? Because otherwise we won't create any order. But I think that this is only one of the three subtypes of this problem of order. The second subtype here is, I think, just the basic uncertainty, which is also expressed in the Parsons quote here, about me not being able to know how to behave in an interdependent situation of strategic also interaction, where my choice also is hinged on what you do. So one just very, very simple sort of game theoretical model of this is the focal point game. So think about two individuals who are sort of lost in a city that they visit, perhaps for touristic reasons, and they don't have a smartphone. So I want to find you in that city, and you want to find me, obviously. But wherever I am going might also depend on what I think you will choose as your next location. And there's a little bit the problem of expectations. So my expectations about what you expect me to do, etc. And this might run into an infinite kind of regress, which obviously does not solve the problem of order. So in the focal point sort of theory, the idea is that these two individuals in that foreign city then both think about certain focal points in the city, like the cathedral, or I don't know, the Brandenburg portal here in Berlin, which sort of put a stop to these infinite expectations, and hence allow to reduce uncertainty in a way in this coordination game. And I think that this coordination game, now described a little bit already in game theoretic vocabulary, is a distinct problem of order, or a distinct feature of this problem of the double contingency, when compared to the prisoner's dilemma, or the security problem that goes back to Thomas Hobbes. Last but not least, I think a third problem here in reversed order that describes or how the double contingency situation can be described is through zero-sum games, where it's mainly about distributional conflict, where basically any kind, if I get the piece of the pie, then you don't get it. And then our double contingency is not necessarily about us being insecure vis-a-vis each other. It is not about us not knowing, right, cognitively what to expect next from you, but it is rather, again, about us wanting the same thing and not having a solution about how to resolve or how to distribute scarce resources. Yeah? So this is a little bit paraphrasing Parsons' characterization of the double contingency situation, which creates a dilemma for actors in situations of mutual interaction. And now Parsons is a strong critic of the utilitarian solutions to this dilemma. And here he thinks a little bit of the economists of his time, also the economist at Harvard, with whom he had sort of an implicit understanding that society would become that sociology would become the study of society, and that economics should become the study of the economy. So Parsons then criticizes that the basically economic utilitarian view that sees individual actors as just pursuing their individual goals in a self-interested kind of way, and that Adam Smith's metaphor of the invisible hand then can explain social order is, so according to Parsons, not a sufficient answer to this problem of how situations of double contingency are solved. It may be an adequate theory for the economy, for the question of how scarce resources are distributed, but according to Parsons, it is not a solution to this problem of social order. And why? Well, he sees then sort of utilitarians running into either one horn of two horns in a dilemma. The one is that utilitarians simply say that there is, in a way, a situational determinism. You put two rational actors with sort of egoistic motives of self-interest into a situation, and just you determine the parameters of the situation as such, right? You give them like perfect preferences, you give them a cost-benefit function, such that these perfectly calculating machines of utilitarian actors arrive at a solution to the problem, right? So that in a way, this double contingency of this mutual interaction is simply stopped because both actors are in a way equipped with perfectly deterministic cost-benefit functions. And Parsons sees this as one horn of the utilitarian dilemma, because this situational determinism then reduces actors to mere calculating machines. So you take away their individual autonomy, but this very individual autonomy is what created this problem of double contingency in the first place. So this is the first horn of the dilemma. The second horn of the dilemma then is if you preserve individual autonomy. So, for instance, you give actors